For landlords, by landlords. The Rent Perfect Podcast with David Pickron.
Hey, here we are again.
So glad to be back. It's been a minute.
It's been a little bit of time
Yeah.
since we've been behind the microphone. We've been busy.
Yeah, we've been busy.
Traveling
Yep.
and launching some new products, and it's great. Hey, David Pickron here. I'm your host at the Rent Perfect Podcast.
Time out.
But
I'm hosting today.
what? You're hijacking
It's a hostile takeover, okay?
Oh, my gosh.
Because I want to talk about, you and I have been talking about that. We've had a podcast episode about this previously, and that's rent by the room, right?
You're scaring me, Scott.
But I'm taking over because...
So
anyway.
now I have to answer your questions.
Yes, I'm going to interrogate or interview, which you can look at it however you want. But
Okay.
So I know, one of our recent conversations says, you finally took the leap and experimented with the rent by the room concept.
Yes. You know, a lot of times people will comment to me as I'm speaking out. They say, hey, I like your podcast. I like what you say. But when I went and did it, it was a lot harder than you make it seem
Right.
when you talk about it, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, I live up to what I teach, and that is constantly be evaluating your rentals, your investments. I invest in all kinds of stuff, not
Right.
just rentals too, right? But I just am always analyzing, am I getting the best bang for my buck? And
So what was it that finally pushed you to the brink of like, I'm gonna at least attempt this?
okay, so in this particular case, I had 2 condos that I had midterm rentals on.
Okay.
And with kind of the landscape of the U.S. and the Canadian dollar, I wasn't getting a whole lot of traction like I used to get on my midterms, my people coming down, my winter visitors down here. In addition to that, we passed marijuana being legal here in Arizona, and in between my midterms, so here's how it works down here. From January to about April 15th, we get about $5,500 in a 3-bedroom condo. Okay? Great monthly.
Great, yeah.
But now from April to December, we have empty units. So kill a month out of the year because it takes a month to get it,
to turn it, get it occupied again.
re-rented. And what was happening with me was this year on December 31st, the people who kind of lived in that for 6, 7, 8 months, a lot of them, you know, one of them was in a wheelchair and just banged into all the walls and scuffed up everything. They got really sick, and they left on December 31st, and January 1st, my midtermers came in that paid me $5,500, and I had one night to
I remember this turn.
Yeah, like 3 handymen up overnight. It was just super stressful. Not to mention another one just reeked of marijuana smoke, you know, which they're not allowed to smoke in there. They got you know, fined for it. I kept their deposit and charged them for it, and that's fine. But that doesn't help me when I have to turn it,
right,
and someone's coming paying me $5,500 the next day. So pretty stressful, and it just seems like wasn't having the traction from the January to April market, even though we were feeling them. But then it was that May to December fill that was just causing us some issues. So, you know, we said, hey, let's make our life easier. We have a lot of things going on in our life right now. We want to simplify too, because we talk about time.
Yeah.
And does your property own you, or do you own your property? We've done a podcast on that, and I started thinking, you know, these things, I'm probably making $4,000 to $5,000 more a year off of each unit, which is nice, $4,000 to $5,000 a year. But then do I want all that time and all that headache and that turn? And think of what is December 31st? It's New Year's Eve.
Right.
You know, it's coming out of Christmas. It's just a crazy part of the year. So we decided, hey, this will be our last year. Let's turn these into long-term rentals.
Gotcha.
We're still profitable. We're still making money. We don't make the extra $4,000 to $5,000 a year, but we also don't have the headache and the stress, right? So we're just balancing that in our lives. And so we put them up. Now they're furnished. They're fully furnished.
Right.
So we put them up for rent, and condos went really soft here in Phoenix. We didn't get one Zillow. We had an MLS. You know, we didn't get one look, and I think we were priced right. We didn't get one call for anybody to look at it for over a month. And I'm like, you know what, something's just not right here. Now, our rental market has come down. Our pricing of our homes have come down, and so we're kind of sliding backwards a little bit. And so I we talk about different kind of investing. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to turn these 2 condos into renting by the room and refocus, make a lease, make sure legally we're covered. And I'm going to get into a little bit new game. Now, it's still a property. It's still rentals. But renting by the room is way different than just renting the whole house.
So where did you list those at then? You is there a different place you put them in to rent
so
those
I
out?
went more into Facebook groups.
Okay.
So renting by the room, kind of in my short experience, right? I mean, been around a lot of people who do it. It's a younger person's game. So I kind of went to, student housing kind of groups and just different stuff like that. And just posted it there. I didn't go to Zillow and I didn't go to those media for that marketing, but I got a ton of traction
quickly, right? I mean, it was fairly quick.
I got a lot of people saying, "Hey, so." In the 3-bedroom, I have 1 master and 2 baths, and you pay a little bit more for the master than you do. You share a bathroom with the other 2, and some people just were really looking at the cheapest way to live, and others said, "No, I want my own bathroom," or whatever. And so you just meet different kind of people, and the tours were completely different than what normally they are.
Yeah,
right. Because now I'm not really saying, let me take you through the whole place is yours. This is your room. After we get out of this doorway, the rest is common area.
Yeah, we're going communal living now, right?
Which now created so many questions in my showings that honestly I wasn't really prepared for. And that is, if you want to example some of those questions.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a couple questions, yeah.
I don't mean to take over here,
no, you're good.
Talking a lot.
I've taken over. You're just answering my questions. So, yeah, I'd love to hear
I'm
those.
reliving, these things. But first of all, the mindset of someone who's going to just share a room and not know their roommates, it would not be for me.
Right.
Right. Like I'm get the whole place, or I'm not interested.
I don't want a blind draw on who am I going to get. Who's
I mean, backstory is my best friend in high school and I, best friends all through high school. We went and shared a dorm together at college, and we got in a fist fight within the second month because of we were best friends but couldn't live together, right? And so, it just living together is a little bit different. But this younger generation seem to have a lot of friends online,
Right.
but I don't know if they have a ton of like, hey, let's go get a room together.
Right.
Because as much traction as I've got, I'm like, there's that many people out there that want to rent by the room. So I started showing it, and I showed it to, and then first of all, every one of these people I showed it to are amazing, great people. So I'm gonna maybe, I don't mean to talk bad, not really them, but just about the circumstances of the generational and the landlord and whatever. So not knocking the people, but the one of the gals came in and had just a ton of questions, right? So we come out of the bedroom, I show her, she likes it. Well, can I move the bed over? And yes, within this room.
It's your domain,
it's
right?
your
You
domain.
own it. You own that.
Now, outside this room, there's going to be more yeses to those questions inside the room than yes.
Yeah.
So then she's like, well, if I'm going to be a third resident here, I want a third of the cabinet space. So how are you going to give me a third of the cabinet space, right? How am I going to get a third of the refrigerator?
Right.
I mean, And then she said, well, actually, I want the whole 2-car garage. So how can I get control of the whole 2-car garage? And I sat back and I thought, this, what I'm going to call communal living in a way, it's only going to be successful if people are really pretty forgiving.
Yeah.
Really, right?
Yep.
You get one person that wants to take control of everything and dominate everybody else, I'm going to be in the middle of problems.
Yeah, you're now referee for the two people who are maligned versus the one who's running everything.
So I got through the questions about, hey, where am I going to get to put my food in the pantry and the fridge, and hey, that's okay, that's great. And then this particular person said, I want control of the 2-car garage. I'm like, do you have 2 cars? Oh no, I just have one. I just want control of it. I'm like, well, really, one space is for one room and one space is for another room, right? I mean. So those kind of red flags started to kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of different that you would want control of that, right?
Yeah.
So she says, well, I want to apply. I want to take the master bedroom. I said, okay, great. And so I sent her a lease, and she actually signs her side of the lease, and I don't ever sign mine until it's completely done. And then I sent her a request for deposit and everything, and she says, Well, I don't want to pay the $3.95 transfer fee or the wire fee,
transaction
right?
fee,
The
yeah, right, yeah,
ACH fee. And I
right.
said, oh my gosh, you're really like throwing down a
Right.
ton of demands here, right? This is just one of 3 people I'm going to be
Right.
dealing with in this property. And I said, no, I'm sorry. That's how we need to accept payment here. And she said, well, let me think about it. And then the next question I got, okay, that kind of went quiet. The next question I got was, I need to make sure and have a guarantee that the other roommates are not going to be working from home during the day. And that's what I just said. Okay.
You might not be
Like,
my gal, right?
I said, I'm going to rescind the offer.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I appreciate it. I'm going to refund you your application fee. But the communal living, it might not be for you,
Yeah.
right?
So what if one of the roommates did work from home, but they were in their room?
Well, and that's just it, right?
Yeah.
You have to understand, you don't control the whole place. If you can't do your business in the room and nicely share the common area, it might not be a living arrangement for you. It's really, I mean, okay, so let me show you a couple more things. Another gal came, committed, she wanted to do it, but she wanted to pay by credit card. And I could tell by her job and her credit and everything, she was already borderline on whether I would accept you or not. And now you're wanting to pay me on borrowed money.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like, even though it's a rent by the room, 1/3 of the place, would I rent this gal, would I rent anybody a place that I knew was living on credit?
Yeah.
It's just going to,
Right.
the day's going to come where.
Yeah. She might be in there 1 to 2 months,
just
and then all of a
not
sudden you're
good, right?
looking for another resident, right?
And she fought me a little bit on some stuff, and she had a few questions on some things, and so then had a couple come in that wanted to be part of it that was married, and one thing I want to tell you about is there's some really gray areas with fair housing here, right? We're not supposed to determine anything by sex, marital status, familial,
Right.
and yet still you're living inside of the same home. So the females want to live with the females.
Yep.
And so, I decided, okay, I've got 2 properties. I'm going to make a female room by only and a male room only. And so I can just kind of like cater to both places.
Right.
And and just make a special exception that a girl would want to live with a girl for safety reasons. I just felt like I could probably do that under fair housing. But there's some gray areas here that haven't really been addressed. As I talk to my attorneys, they're like, wow, I mean, I don't know how people are requiring single female, right?
Yeah, and
now,
can you move a married couple into housing with 2 other single individuals?
I mean, you could do anything you want
Sure.
but are you going to make the other 2 happy, right? And so,
Well, because now we got 4 people in a 3, and I'm confused.
right,
and
now,
I thought it was only
now
3.
they're paying 1 rental room space, but now they've got an additional person floating
Right.
around the common area, and so these are things that when I went in and we've even done podcasts about, because I hadn't done it,
Right.
and I just maybe interviewed people or talked to friends who've done it or whatever, and I shared the information I learned. I really wasn't sharing information from my own personal experience. I was sharing it from what people were telling me.
Yeah.
So I loved that I did this because now I have a little bit of a different opinion about it, right? So I was going to make about $600 or $700 more a year doing by the room than renting it just to one person.
Yeah.
But remember, I was getting no traction when I wanted
Right.
to rent out the whole
Yeah.
place. And so because I got no traction, I just got creative. Well, what's crazy in the middle of all of this, where I'm getting people committing, and then I'm kind of one dropping out, or I'm kicking it, or I'm
Right.
I'm
You're
saying
hedging, right? You're like, I'm not sure about this.
This just isn't working real smooth.
Right.
I have one gentleman come in, little older gentleman's, up in a bank, and he's like, "Man, I'll take all 3 rooms. What is it?"
Did he come in looking for a single room though?
He came in looking for a single room.
Okay.
Well, I think he was just toying with it, right?
Okay, yeah. Like maybe
I
this
think-
might be for me. Yeah.
I think what I've found in this situation is us older generation aren't real comfortable with it, but we're kind of looking into it and we're kind of approaching it a little bit more cautious.
Yeah.
So he came in, looking, and then finally said, "You know what? I like this place enough. can I just take the whole thing in a traditional long
Right.
term? And I'm like, why? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
So I bumped that rent down. So I'm not
Yeah.
making the 400 extra dollars,
Yeah.
a month. But here's the other thing. Now I can say, you take over the electric bill, because
Yeah.
I was going to make $400 more a month, but I had an electric bill that I calculated in there. My 400 was profit, not it was calculated. But electric bills in Phoenix in the summertime, like when I'm up to $400, $500, $600, and someone's got it cranked down to 65 and the windows are open,
Right.
which one of the three am I going after?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I had just a lot of babysitting on this 3-bedroom that I did, but I ended up just keep working it, and so now I went back to a traditional rental on that one, which I'm super happy with. Think that will be very successful. Now over on the boys one, I had a boys and a girls
the
one.
2-bedroom.
So the girls one now didn't work out.
Right.
Right. They were both going to be girls to start out with. I said, no, I'll make one girls, one. But now there's no girls.
Yeah.
Right. The boys was awesome. Met a person there, looked at it, got the concept, didn't have a ton of questions, pretty mellow, said beautiful, love it. He was a golfer. These are on a golf course out the window, just loved it. And he said, and he gave me a great idea. I give him all the credit in the world. He's like, hey, why don't you let me find the other roommate?
I like it.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I will give you $200 if you find the other roommate. Now, what does that do? Okay. That now puts an ad out that says looking for a roommate, not a landlord's ad that says room for rent, right? Now, if they're on Facebook doing this, each of these can look at each other and say, oh, hey, I choose you.
Right.
There's skin in the game on both sides instead of me just hooking up two strangers, right?
Right.
And I think people are more susceptible out there to want to rent if they know the roommate. Because one of the questions I kept getting when I was originally doing the 3-bedroom that I didn't talk about was they were constantly asking me about the other roommates. And I was in a position where I don't know if I can give out all of this information. There, I just don't think I'm in the position to do that. And I was really cautious about sharing, oh, she works here and her credit score's this.
Right.
And I just, she had to be really, really careful what I said about each other. And yet those are a lot of questions I was getting because that's going to be their next future roommates.
Right.
Well, now if they find their own roommate and they have these conversations and they talk back and forth and they set up the showing, right? I just get into a situation where really now I'm renting to two friends that rented a room, but I'm just accepting two different payments instead of accepting one payment from one and maybe the other one paying him in the background. And so he found another renter for his roommate. And so I started out on the journey, and I just
Now, if they were all that easy, you'd do it all over again, right? But it's not always that easy.
But I really enjoyed the journey because I learned a lot in it, right? I learned a lot about human behavior, about living conditions, about, and so now as I move forward, and I will still do a rent by the room, but now I'm going to find that first person and incentivize them to go to fill it up with those that they would choose.
Yeah, you'll happily pay a finder's fee to not have to be babysitting the whole
so
relationship.
now I'm really thinking about, as these guys rotate out of the rooms, that when someone leaves, I'm just going to go to the other people in the house and say, hey, $200, guys, whoever fills that room, they would much rather see an ad from you saying, hey, this is a great place, close to everything, I get to work okay, so just a different experience. I was successful on one, I went back to traditional on the other one, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
So,
but you are a little bit wiser, and now you have firsthand experience in a new way to rent, which is always good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, we had the attorneys do up a new room-by-room lease, and we also have a little supplement that we can send out to people that they need to make sure is in their lease if they don't use the Rent Perfect lease. They can email info@rentperfect.com and just kind of get that language, because it's different, right? Now, all of a sudden, kitchens, living rooms, laundry rooms, garage, however you set it up, you better lay out specifically who gets what and what is common area. And things like quiet hours. Like, I didn't have to worry about quiet hours when I rented the whole room or the whole place.
The whole place, yeah.
But now all of a sudden it's 11:30 and someone brings over a girlfriend or a boyfriend and they plop in front of the TV and the TV's up loud. And, I mean, now all of a sudden you've got to worry about.
Or you work a graveyard shift and you're coming in and out of the house at odd hours. Yeah.
Right. I want to have a little party and I'm going to have 4 or 5 people over. I'm going to cook them dinner.
Right.
Even if it's at 6 o'clock. Okay. But I'm coming home to like, I got to study for a test. I got to.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these peace and enjoyment of your roommate, like that clause has got to be in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would just say if you've got somebody that's being very nitpicky on the showing, I would be very cautious because this is not for the nitpicker.
Right.
This is not for the controller. This is actually, I think, for the busy person who just has their life outside of their living. They're not like homebodies hanging out. It's kind of like I'm going to school a lot. I'm working a lot. I come back and just
need a place to sleep, right?
Yeah, I just need a place to sleep. So it is a little bit different than renting the entire unit. But hey, it's needed because I will tell you, I got so much traction. I still have to say no, sorry, room. I got to go find where those. I placed all those ads and shut them all down. And even though I placed them 30 days ago, you think they just kind of go through people's feeds and expire themselves, but people are searching for it. So if you have a property you're struggling with at all, you might want to consider running it by the room, getting the right lease, getting the supplement from us, and then going on your own venture and having a good time with it.
Love it.
You can always go back. That's what I like about these properties is you can always turn them back in. Now, a big company that does this right now is Pad Split, and Pad Split's going around and what they want you to do, and I think this is a great concept. I think there's good and bad to it. I think I like the guys over Pad Split. The only problem I have with Pad Split is they want you to change your house to get as many rooms. So you have a construction bill to reformat your house. If it doesn't work out for you, you have to unwind that. So, like I said, Pad Split might be a great option for people to maximize their property, but you might want to take one of your homes and just do a rent by the room first without all the expense, just to see if you like it and it works for you. And then if you like it and it works for you, go maximize it and rock it, and Pad Split can help, you do that. So anyways, like I said, not for or against, just want to make sure that sometimes I tried something. I ended up in the middle of it going back, and I wasn't ready to make that big commitment. So,
well, I'm glad you took us on that journey. I don't want to try that, but I'm glad you did, and I'm glad I could learn from your experience on this. One last question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
In enforcement on this if there's multiple people there, is it the roommates that are required to enforce the rules on each other, or does that fall back on you? What was going to be your experience there?
Well, in my lease, I have that if they come to me with a complaint, they have to have proof of a lease violation. So if you want to record it, so someone comes home, has a big dinner, doesn't clean their dishes. Now there's dirty dishes in there. Simply, in the lease I have, you must clean up immediately after yourself.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I need proof of lease violations. Now, you really don't want roommates telling on roommates because that doesn't really, last long.
Doesn't foster a lot of love.
It doesn't.
In the home.
But as I met with, remember I didn't do anything with the gals. Even though I met with the gals and I told them the rules, I told them how living was going to go, how it would be if they had a conflict, if they had an issue with somebody else. Don't call me and just say I don't like her. I'm not in the policing of friends. I'm not a friend police, right? You need to call me, but then you have to have physical proof of a lease violation for me to do anything.
Yeah, okay.
And so I was a little nervous about that. We'll see how that goes over here on the unit with the boys and see. Now, maybe we'll have another podcast in a year, and we'll just follow up on, what I've learned.
Yeah, how it's gone
throughout
I
the
love
year.
That. I love it.
Everybody will have a different situation. This is just my situation, but I guess my point is for people is to just don't be afraid to jump in something different. just protect yourself that you can always unwind what
Yeah.
you're going to do. But, I still have some short term, but I unwound some midterm. I have long term. I have commercial. I mean, I dabble in a lot of things. And honestly, midterms, sorry to go off on a tangent, you're hosting this thing, but midterms for me for years were awesome. Those things were, people coming out from Canada, paying all kinds of money. We were getting them rented.
Yeah.
I would put out, in kind of the off season, hey, this property's available for 6 months. I'd have 20 applications, but the market's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the markets change, you have to change. And that's no different for me. And that's just, so don't be afraid to change and analyze. I think sometimes we get older, we get stuck in, I've always done it this way. I've always had this way. Don't get in that rut.
Yeah, perfect. Well, everybody, thanks so much for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe to get more of our content. We'll have links below to our email so you can get those tips and tricks for your leases. And until next time, continue to rent perfect.